Hello, and welcome to Cheers. That's one woman's opinion. I am your host, Carolyn Mills. Today we'll be recapping Cheers Season 3, Episode 21, the exec exec I can't even pronounce the words. The executive's
Executive.
executioner.
Yeah.
The double E's confuse me. And we have a special guest with us. To do the recap and interview combined. And this is
Well,
Raye Birk. He played Walt Twitchell on Cheers on multiple episodes, and I forgot the number. I looked it up yesterday and didn't write it down.
I think it's three, or maybe it was four. And
It
I
seems
can
like
tell
more. I
you
don't know
about
why.
why it's confusing later.
And
That's
thank
just
you for
because
joining
the
the
character
podcast.
is so vivid for people. Oh, it's my pleasure, and I'm honored that you asked me.
So I have questions, and I actually color coded them to the ones that go with Cheers, the other things, and then I have the here's a little known fact when we get to the end that I sent you about. So,
Okay.
before I do for the recap, I have questions about other things you've done. And someone asked, "How did you feel about reappearing as Twitchell on the?" Oh, what happened here? Hold on, technical. There we go. Okay, on the Frasier reunion episode where Cliff retired.
Oh, well, it was great to be a part of it. Because it had been a long time since I'd seen any of the people on that show. And my chief memory of working on the show was how warm and friendly and everybody in the cast was. And that when you came back and do another episode or something, they welcomed you like you were an old friend. It was just wonderful. So that Frasier episode really was a reunion, just like we saw it in the episode.
Nice. And somebody asked, actually, I got a lot of questions about this one. This was a popular one. So people want to know about guest starring on The Golden Girls and what the four women were like.
That's a question that comes up a lot because I get a lot of uh, attention for my Golden Girls episodes. Uh, they they were wonderful, each individually, in their own very individual ways. I think that there was a sense that there were four stars on that show, and they all knew it. But they were all very kind to me, especially B, who I don't know, I had the best rapport with, and mainly because I think she'd done a lot of theater work, and I had done a lot of theater work as well, and we just found lots of things to talk about. So they were wonderful. Um, what was the most interesting one of the ones I did? I believe I did one that oh, I can't think of her name now. A movie star, Tammy, from the 1950s musicals, married
Oh yeah, okay, I know what you mean.
to Eddie
The show,
Fisher.
the movie Tammy, Debbie Reynolds.
Her name, yeah, Debbie Reynolds. She did a guest shot that I was also on. Uh, um, and there was a lot of there were five stars on that particular episode. I mean, everyone was always very professional and all that, but it's like everyone had their territory. I was very grateful to be a part, to be asked to come back and do multiple episodes for Golden Girls. It's a show that has continued to be very, very popular, uh, well beyond the time they're almost all, I think they're all gone now, I guess. Yeah, they were wonderful.
One of the fans wrote, regarding Golden Girls, they wrote, "Now look here, Stretch. Not many characters got to sass Dorothy and lived to tell about it."
Exactly. It's amazing. The all emails I'll get or requests to either show up at something that's a Golden Girls fan club, here where I live, they do a Golden Girls bingo night, and
Oh, that's
I
cool.
was asked if to come over, and they were going to show part of the one of the episodes, and asked me to be there, and ask questions, and answer questions, excuse me, and things like that.
That's cool.
Um, yeah, it has a huge fan base. Even that, I guess, not unlike Cheers, which has continued to also, you know, play quite regularly, and it's very popular still.
That's because the 80s had the best sitcoms.
Maybe so. They're not. I don't watch as much television now. I don't need
Yeah.
to because I'm not in the business anymore, really. But when I did watch, current sitcoms, they they didn't interest me or you know lead me to want to come back and watch another episode or make sure I watched it next week or anything like that. And I know back in the 80s and into the 90s, I certainly did. Seinfeld and so many of them. Part of it was I was, of course, involved in the business then and appeared on a lot of them. So I would watch episodes, even the ones I wasn't in, because I liked the shows. I thought they were funny.
So on the Wonder Years, you played assistant principal Nick, and I hope I'm saying this name right, Deb Erna. You originally read
The
for
Perna,
Coach
yes.
Cutler. And how did you feel about shifting the role of the strict administrator? And what are your favorite memories of working with Fred Savage and the rest of the young cast?
Oh, wow. You know, um, on for the Wonder Years, almost everything I did was with Fred, who was, I don't know, 13 at the time, maybe 14. He was, you know, a tween just about. Um, and they handled things with those youngsters very, very well. I didn't ever get a lot of chance to chat with those young actors because what would happen is they'd be sent off to school upon finishing shooting a scene because that was not done in front of a live audience. That was all on film, like little movies. And like I would usually when you do a scenes like that, they shoot a master and then they shoot one person's close-ups and then they turn the camera around and you do the other person's close-ups. That's called coverage. But when it was with Fred, they would shoot the master, they would shoot his close-ups. He'd go off to class to school, and I would have to do my close-ups with the script supervisor of being off camera. So in a way, I never got to know those kids, like I got to know some adults on other shows. But the writing was so good, and so I think it's probably still holds up pretty well. I hadn't watched it in years, but there was something very real. It was very, very good television, I thought, and was around for a long time. I'm glad that Fred has had the career that he has had too, moving into directing and things like that. Did I answer
I think
that
you only
question? Did I
seen a
cover?
couple episodes of that show.
Oh, you haven't. Well, it's harder to see for one thing. It's not syndicated like the others. Though each individual, I think season by season, they're kind of unified, but they're not sequential. You don't have to have seen episode 4 to be able to watch episode 6 or anything like that. I still get residuals for it, so I know it does play, but not nearly as much as other sitcoms that I've been involved in.
Okay. If when I hear the residual checks from shows are not that much, and then as time goes by, they get even less from what I've heard.
And it all depends on how often they play. Yes, they're not. Some shows, well, I'm sure you've heard stories of actors getting a residual check for 5 cents or something like that. Costs more to send it out than the check is worth.
Yeah. You've appeared on the X-Files, Babylon 5, Star Trek Insurrection. Do you approach playing sci-fi and fantasy characters differently than sitcom or dramatic roles?
What an interesting question. Um, Usually, uh, well, the whole purpose of a sitcom is that you want it to be funny, and so there is an ulterior motive on that. And the more dramatic shows, be they sci-fi or not, uh, it's usually more about the situation and what's going on, what's happening to the characters. Um, so they're a little as an actor, they're a little more interesting because they ask a little bit more of the actor than a sitcom. But of course, being a good sitcom actor is requires a lot of skill in itself. Uh, you have to understand comedy, I think, and not get in the way of the jokes by what you're trying to do. Uh, Usually, though, the people who are casting the shows and the director handle that well just by virtue of the people they hire. And they hire people that seem to fit exactly what they need for a particular character, for a particular situation or episode. Uh, but in a sense, so what I guess the answer is I may be after something different in more dramatic pieces than in comedy, but it's still acting, and I still approach it from a character point of view and trying to be alive make it seem like a real person,
Nice.
not just somebody telling jokes.
Nice. You've already mentioned this, but you have an extensive theater background. For example, you were in the Crucible in 1776 at the Guthrie Theater. Do you prefer TV, movies, or live
Mhm.
theater, and why?
Oh, well, first of all, I like both because each has its own separate kinds of challenges, and so that's really good for an actor. Um, I think if an actor does a good job in the theater, even if it's a big theater like the Guthrie that seats 12, or the old theater, Guthrie Theater, 1,400 people, uh, they the people sitting in the first row should feel the same kind of reality to the performance that somebody watching television does. And someone sitting way at the back of the house in a big theater like that should still feel like they're human
Oh,
being,
okay.
behave believably, and that the performances are nuanced and alive and like a real person. So uh, the challenges, of course, are very different. I mean, you need a certain kind of training to work in big theaters. Uh, and there are a lot of people who start in TV or film and then get an opportunity to say work on Broadway in a big theater like that, and they don't really have the experience. They may be fine actors, but they just don't have the experience of what it takes to work in that kind of larger format. Whereas usually actors who were trained in the theater can make the adjustments that have to be made to work in to work on the screen more easily. I don't know if that begins to answer the question. It's a great question, and I'm so grateful over the course of my career that I got to do a lot of both.
Nice.
I guess ultimately I'm more comfortable in the theater because that's where I started and worked for 14 years before I ever went to Los Angeles and started in television and film.
So you guest starred on an episode of Saint Elsewhere, which is part of the Cheers universe, or as it's commonly known, the Tommy Westfall universe. Can you tell us what that was like and what is Mr. Bill Daniels like?
I never got to work with Bill Daniels on it, and to tell the
Oh, you
truth,
didn't work. Okay.
I don't remember. I know I did one. I don't remember it. Uh, I did, oh God, well over 100 pieces of episodic television, and some of them are very vivid, and some of them just sort of like, oh, did I do that? Oh, I guess I did. So I'm sorry, I don't have anything specific to add to that about that experience.
I understand that. I interviewed Frank Collison from Dr. Quinn. He played Horace. I interviewed him not too long ago, and I asked him about some show he guest starred on. He goes, "Was I in that?" I was like, "Well, it's on your credit."
I totally understand.
But I mean,
And then
80
there are things
years,
that
that
we
was
were,
40 years ago.
yep. Well, this episode of Cheers is 43 years ago. Um,
Yep.
yes, it's true. And then there are those that show, you get an opportunity. You're just as happy that it is forgotten because it wasn't very good. But you never know how it's going to turn out when you start out, so you take the job.
You also guest starred on 3 episodes of Elf. And from everything
Yes.
I've read, that cast was not that close, and they also had some issues with the puppet. So I was wondering what that experience was like.
Gosh, I don't. Uh, uh, I don't remember that there was friction or difficulty with the cast. The working with the puppet was a challenge because of the way they had to have the set created so that someone could work the puppet while you in what looked like a real room or a living room. Because I remember there would be kind of these passages cut in the floor for the puppet to stand in, with the operator to stand in when he would operate Alf, the puppet. Um, my memories of why I remember having a nice time on it, chiefly because of the dad on it, who was an actor named Max Wright. Wonderful, interesting
Right.
guy. I had met him in other contexts, and it's always, when you are guesting on a show, everybody knows them. It's like you walking into a family reunion, and you may or may not know somebody in that family. And it was great that I knew Max, and we had a lot to talk about. We had a lot of mutual friends, and that made it a real pleasure. And it made me feel more comfortable, so that you can relax and feel like, oh yeah, okay, I'm not having to prove anything, or whatever anxiety you have about doing a good job sort of melts away when the people around you are so supportive, or if you know them.
He actually
It's like, oh, they're
appeared on
glad
an
to see
episode of
you.
Cheers.
Oh, but Max did you say?
Yep.
Oh,
Season it was with Woody, so it had to be season 4, season 5, because Diane's still in it.
uh-huh. Okay. Yeah, that was before Elf, I think. Then
No, I'm not sure. I don't remember when Elf came out, but it's either in
I don't
85 or
exactly.
86 he would have appeared.
Yeah, I think Elf was like in the late '80s, but I couldn't say for sure.
Yeah, after a while, the years blend together. And you play two different characters. Wait, yeah, you play two different characters, guest starring 2 times on Mr. Belvedere. And I was wondering what Bob Euchre is like.
He was fine, and he was
Because he was like a baseball legend, and I'm a big baseball fan.
exactly, and he was a really sweet and easy to get along with, and I won't say humble, but sort of leaning in that direction because he knew he wasn't an actor, and he was surrounded by actors who knew how to do this, and I think he relied on them and their support to help him, do what he needed to do better. I mean, he was very comfortable in front of the camera, which is sort of all he had to do. But he was a baseball player. He had, you know, as opposed to a bunch of people who had trained as actors or had a lot of experience as actors if they hadn't trained. Yeah, I remember. Uh, do you remember who played the wife on that? I
No, I
just
don't know
can't
her
think
name.
of her
Starts
name
with
right
an I.
now.
Was that Irene Graff?
And she, yes, yeah, who? and her whose brother is a big musical theater guy still to this day. I mean, as a director and producer and things in New York. Graf,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah.
Musical theater is my favorite.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I minored in theater in college. I love theater.
Oh yes.
Yep.
Where did you go to theater, or where'd you go to college?
SUNY Cortland.
Okay.
And I've only done backstage stuff. I don't like being in front of the, how I said camera, in front of an audience,
Yeah, that's all
but I
right.
love the backstage.
Uh-huh.
So in 1988, I believe it was, you played Pap Smear in The Naked Gun, the movie. And I was wondering what that experience was like.
It was wonderful. It was just terrific. Uh, Primarily led by the Zucker brothers themselves, who just the atmosphere on the set was relaxed and funny. Um, they they enjoyed their because they wrote the script as well as directed it. Uh, they they laughed at their own jokes. They'd be way off to one side so that they couldn't be heard, but you laughing at what the actors were doing, especially in terms of handling the language and the jokes that they had put into the script. And they would always have lots of. We did a lot of multiple takes of things. Why don't you try this? And they come, why don't you try that? Or see about this? Or what if you did that? And it just made it fun to do. And it felt like, it was experimental, and it was okay if one idea worked better than another, that was fine. If you came up with an idea, that was fine as well. Uh, it was a real joy to work with them. And Airplane was still in my mind because that had happened first. So who were these young guys, I wondered, and they were terrific. Yeah. I actually did get to Pap Smear made a second appearance very, very briefly in 33 and a third, which was which the brothers did not direct. That had another director. It was
Oh, I don't know
odd.
that.
I was there as somebody in prison, I believe, and as a plot device to set up something that happens in the story. And it was like one day of work, but it was great to, have one day of work on a movie. But and then a couple of weeks later, I couldn't tell you how many, I was doing a production of the Caucasian Chalk Circle at the time. And I got a call from my agent, said they want you to come back and shoot another day on 33 and a third. I said, what? How why? Did they have to do the scene over or something? Oh, no, they've got a different ending now, they said, and they want to use you. So I was in tech rehearsals actually. And I had to make arrangements that said, I'll come and do it. I'm happy to do it, but you got to let me out by 5:30 so that I can get to my theater rehearsal. And they were very accommodating. And they needed a bigger ending, is what it turned out. Something more spectacular. So they put Pap Smear in a helicopter, and I was sitting on a toilet reading Playboy magazine, and then they fired rockets at the helicopter and blew it up. So, but they said, well, should there be another one of these movies, it's possible that you could have survived that explosion. So they held out the hope that maybe Pap Smear might appear again, which had never happened, but I certainly wish it would have happened.
I was about 8 when the first Naked Gun movie came out, and it was one of my mom's favorite movies, and I love it too. But as a little kid, I didn't get all the jokes, including Ashford's name. I was like, Mom, why do you keep laughing when they say his name? And she's like, Oh God, I got to say it.
Well, and I've run into people, who ask me what if I was in the movie or what I played, and as soon as I say the name, they laugh. Yeah. Also, one of the other pleasures of being on that, as I remember, was I got to meet and a lot of time off set with Ricardo Montalban, who was wonderful, delightful man, and stories all. I mean, he could go on for hours telling show business stories about working, Hollywood in his early in his career and this over the course of his career, which was unusual because he was a Latino actor, a lot of
Right.
stars, but he was one and had a long and very successful career. Very charming, charming man. It was a pleasure just to spend time with him.
Yeah, that movie had a great cast.
Yeah, yeah, they did.
And I have one more not Cheers question before we go to the recap. And that was you played Simon Tidwell
Okay,
in Doc Hollywood, which Woody Harrelson from Cheers was also in. And I was wondering if it was different working with him
right.
on film versus TV because you knew him from both.
Um, we just didn't have a lot of shared time together. Actually, was the thing. We never had any scenes together. My stuff was almost all with sorry, blanking on the name. Doc Hollywood. You know who I mean. Uh,
Oh,
uh,
Michael J. Fox.
my yeah, that's who most of my stuff was with. There were some group scenes and things like that. Um, so I never really got to know Woody that well. Nor it's interesting. Even when he was with the cast of Cheers when I had done some of those. He was very nice and everything. It was great that he was there, and you know, uh, but it wasn't something. There was no carryover from Cheers to Doc Hollywood that I recall. Unlike, I'll say it, unlike George Wendt and Ratzenberger, I would run into them at other places, occasionally events or even on a shoot for other things, and they were incredibly uh, friendly and welcoming. And hey, Ray, it's good to see you. It, it was like we were old buddies, and I had not done, I hadn't done that much with them, but those two fellas in particular made me feel so comfortable and at home, not only on the set for Cheers, but whenever I met them in other contexts. They were just great fellas.
Nice. Okay, so now we have the actual Cheers recap. So as I said, that was season 3, episode 21,
Okay.
The Executioner's Executive. Got the title right that time too. The episode first aired May 7th, 1985. It was directed by James Burrows, who sadly passed away earlier this year. Written by
Yeah.
Heidi Perlman, which is Rhea Perlman's sister. Guest cast Richard Rote as Mr. Heck, and he passed away in 2022 from a heart attack. Mark Schnub
Hmm.
as Billy Richter. David Wall as Phil Wagner. Raye Birk as Walt Twitchell. Warren Munson as John Parker. Randall Miller as Michael. Larry Harpnell as Larry, and he passed away in 2005 from an undisclosed cause. Cheers was filmed in front
Hmm.
of a live studio audience, was said by Shelley Long for this episode. And the summary cold open. A customer gives Carly 25-cent tip. Carla makes a big deal over it. The man takes out a $10 bill and asks if she has change. Carla gives him the quarter and tells him, now beat it. And the theme song where everybody knows your name plays.
Yes.
Oh, and
Can I say something?
feel free to stop me at any point if you college.
Just one little thing that was of interest to me about it is the cold opening that you described with Carla and the customer about the money and all that the tip, and um, that actor who was not he got a listing at the end credits. He didn't get an upfront credit. Uh, is an actor named Alan Blumenfeld, who's had a long career in L.A. as a character actor, and I'd forgotten that he was on the same episode. I had known Alan for at least 10 years before. And as a matter of fact, my wife and I married he and his wife. And Alan Blumenfeld is still alive to this day and occasionally still works down in Los Angeles. So that was a wonderful surprise when I looked at the episode. So great.
I didn't realize he wasn't in the credits when I listed him because they don't
Yeah, I
call him
was
by name
surprised that it
and
wasn't.
usually says customer.
Yeah,
But yeah, I didn't see him when I did the.
yeah, yeah, he's in the end credits, but he's not in those, where they list the guest stars.
Okay. Cliff comes into the bar in a bad mood. A new couple moved in his apartment and they are loud, noisy, and up all hours playing their bebop music. Norm suggests that Cliff have a talk with them, but Cliff says that would just lead to a fight because of the kind of people they are. The way he describes them, he sounds like he's describing teenagers, and it was so funny to me when we realized it's not teenagers. He's just
Right.
and I also laugh because in the later seasons, I forget if it's 10 or 11, seasons 10 or 11, there's another neighbor that he thinks is Hitler. So I was like, what's with Cliff and these weird neighbors that he
I didn't remember that one. That's great.
Oh, okay. A man comes in and Norm ducks under the bar. He explains that it's his boss who must have seen him leave early. Diane asks how he would know that Norm is at the bar, and Norm explains the company is full of spies. Norm pulls his coat over his head and runs into the men's room as he tells the others to cover for him. Mr. Heck, Norm's boss, asks if that was Norm Peterson. Cliff explains there is no Norm Peterson there. He adds, I don't even know a Norm Peterson. Mr. Heck sees the foam insulation from the company's heating ducts on the floor. And I thought, does his company have specialized heating insulation? Because those, I mean, insulation all kind of looks the same to me. How do you know it's your company's? I lost my place. Okay, found it. He goes into the bathroom to find Norm. Norm hides quietly in the stall, squatting on the toilet. Mr. Heck opens the door of the stall, and Norm asks, were you talking to me? Mr. Heck explains that he made Norm the corporate killer, that is, the guy who fires people. He explains firing people's hard on the executives. Also, they find when someone superior fires you, it's humiliating, but Norm has nothing that anyone could envy or resent.
Right.
For George Went's size, he always does a really great job with physical comedy. Considering how big he was, his ability to move and like
Yeah.
squatting on that toilet.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Diana's Carla about having a natural childbirth. Carla says she uses the Le Mans method. She screams like a Ferrari.
Yes. Funny line. Funny line.
I actually had to look up what a Le Mans was because I'd never heard of that. So I had to look up what I was like, well, I assume it's a car because she said she screams like a Ferrari, but I looked it up. I was only five when
Uh-huh.
this episode came out. So Norm comes in with Billy, the first man he has to fire. He has not been able to fire him yet, however. Sam and Diane start discussing their previous relationship again. Norm tells them he wants to talk about something more interesting than them, and tells them the day he spent with Billy because he couldn't fire him in the morning. But he says he came close at the baseball game.
Right.
He goes over to Billy again. Billy says he always wanted to be an accountant. He also says he's that his wife's pregnant, and Norm says that he's trying to get Vera pregnant. Billy says our kids are going to play together at the company picnic. Norm says, I don't think so, Billy. He starts crying as he lets Billy know that he's been fired. Billy comforts Norm, trying to tell him that he'll be fine because he's still young. The gang watches Norm's meltdown. Billy gets Norm to smile before he leaves. Sam comes over to get Norm. He tells Diane to get Norm a beer. And I noticed something interesting, which my family actually, we all noticed this growing up. Well, when I was growing up watching it, um, Norm especially, but most of the cast pretty much, they never actually finish one beer. They keep getting new beer, but they never finish one they have. So he only had like drinking about half.
I think I remember also as I watched that one, it seemed like the beer was already there for him. We didn't have to see him go and draw a beer. It was like, oh, here it is.
I know George Wendt and things I've seen on TV said that that was the most disgusting beer he ever had to drink because it was near beer and then they add stuff in it to make it the foam and everything. And he said it was
Right.
incredibly disgusting.
Probably why they never drank much of it then.
Carla says, "How did it go, Norm?" Sam shoos her away. Norm talks to the others about the company. He tells them, "I'm not cut out to be the company killer." A man comes over to Norm. His name is Phil Wagner. He was sent by the company to spy on Norm to see how he does as the corporate killer. Norm says the man is probably not going to give a report, and Norm says he's relieved. Phil says that Norm made Billy feel like he worked for a caring company.
Yeah.
I want to know if that's like a real thing, if they companies like that actually have killers. I don't think I'd want that job.
Who would want that job? I don't know. It's a terrible job.
Well, Carla did because she said, "Can I do it?" Cliff comes in complaining again about the new neighbors. Carla calls him chicken because he keeps complaining, but he does nothing about it. Cliff says one day he will tell that jerk exactly what I think of him. Carla gives him paper and tells him to write him a letter. Cliff starts to write, "Howdy, neighbor. Please don't take this the wrong way." Carla takes the note and rips it up. And then she writes, "Dear vile, scurvy rat."
Right.
Sam comes out of the office. He asks Diane where Norm is. Diane tells him he is in the back, dropping the axe on his latest victim. Norm comes out with another man, and Norm is crying again. The man hugs Norm and then leaves. Diane says that Norm must be emotionally drained. Norm admits he is, but says he's good at his job. Carla asks Cliff if the neighbor has a disability they can make fun of. He says no, but his wife's not very good looking. Carla ends the letter with, "Bark hello to your wife for us." She tells Cliff to sign it, and he does. Carla puts it into the mail for today's pickup so Cliff cannot chicken out from sending it. Sam tells Norm that his next victim is coming. Norm reads the man's file. We just got to your scene. Walt Twitchell comes in to the bar to pick up the mail. Cliff comes from the back. He tells Carl that the neighbor's cleaning the yard, so he is no longer needs to send the letter. I didn't realize that Cliff and Walt Twitchell didn't already know each other until he introduced himself. I assume they both worked in Boston, so I figured they probably knew each other.
No, I think, yeah, it is a little odd that we didn't know each other, but recognize each other as, by our uniforms.
Yeah.
Uh, and I know that, when I auditioned for it, the only direction I got that they said he's more U.S. Postal than Ratzenberger is. To whatever degree he is militant about being a postal worker, Twitchell is more so.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because in a later
I mean,
episode with the new uniforms, Twitchell
right,
has the gag uniform because he's like, he's never even seen it.
right.
And I lost my place again. Okay. Twitchell compliments Sam on his use of the 9-digit zip code. Cliff comes over and introduces himself to Twitchell. He says that he needs the letter back. Twitchell refuses and tells Cliff, do you remember what he told Cliff?
Uh, well, I believe we recited I recited postal regulations about returning. Once mail is deposited, it cannot be returned or whatever it is.
Correct. It was
And
any
we
letter
both
on
did,
my
and we did
person
it
to the
together.
express purpose delivery, and Cliff joins him at the end, receives the same sanctity that would be afforded any U.S. receptacle.
Yes, by the book. We do it by the book.
Cliff fights Twitchell to get the letter back. Twitchell writes
Right.
down Claven's name. I love that name too, Twitchell.
Yeah. Walt Twitchell. It's a great name.
I lost my place again. All right, Twitchell writes down Claven's name. He leaves, and Cliff tells the others, put a uniform on some guys. They turned into a fascist. He adds, I wouldn't be surprised if that guy had some deep sexual problems. Which is another great line since it describes Cliff perfectly.
Yes. I always liked that it never got, as I listened to it, didn't get a big laugh, but I was like uh, Twitchell's threats. So they're going to have your bags.
Yeah. That's actually, I have that at the end. It's one of my favorite lines when I do the lines. Diane and Sam notice that Norm has fallen asleep. Diane says that the job has taken its toll on Norm and wonders what Norm is dreaming about. Sam says probably the same thing all guys dream about. Diane responds, in your case, that would be me. Sam says he doesn't think Norm is dreaming about her. And then Norm screams. Sam tells Diane, I stand corrected.
Right. Good writing.
Sam goes over to check on Norm. Norm tells him about the dream. Accountants were lined up by elevator doors. It was Norm's job to make them go through the doors into the abyss. Then he looks and a man has on a blindfold. Norm removes the blindfold and sees himself. Both dream Norm scream. Then the awake Norm screams.
Right.
Diane tells him that the dream is telling him a very precious part of you feels like it's being destroyed. Norm admits he hates the job, but it's important. He explains they're all going to get fired anyway. He's just making it easier. Diane tells him these executives are having them do your dirty work. A man comes in looking distraught. He explains that Norm Peterson invited him for a drink. He goes to the table where Norm is. The man's name is John Parker. John already knows why he's there. Norm tells him there's nothing left to say. John is upset because Norm is not crying. Norm tries to force himself to cry, but cannot do it, and John leaves in anger.
Yes.
I actually thought that and my thinking is all the other people he fired, he spent like hours trying to do it, so he was geared up for that. This guy came and said, "I know what you're doing," so he didn't have time to get worked up and upset.
Right. Plus, he'd been also firing people in between too. I mean, it was like this wasn't the
Yeah.
same day or anything.
Oh, I did it already. Diane tells Norm he's becoming callous and hard. Norm agrees and asks for the phone. He is going to quit his job. He calls Mr. Simpson in personnel. However, as soon as he says his name, he's hung up again. Hung up on. He dials the number again and is hung up on again. Realizing what is happening, he calls Mr. Heck directly. He says, Mr. Heck, this is Norm Peterson, and laughs evilly. And that was the
Yeah.
episode. So,
Right.
what were your thoughts of the episode?
Oh, I liked it. Well, I'm in it. So yeah, I liked it a lot. And I like, as I watch stuff again, when I get surprised by something, even though I sort of know, you know, how it goes, uh, um, that delights me. And there were several places in this where I was surprised, but either by remarks or little twists, like when Norm calls up to resign, and as soon as he says his name, no one will talk to him anymore because they think
Yeah,
they're going to fire. That's a terrific little twist. The writing on this was always very, very good, and
yeah,
uh,
they had good
and I
writers.
think, I think, and to my mind, it got better as over the course of years. I don't you would know better than I because you really have studied and seen the multiple years of this. But as you get to know these characters better and better over time, there's just more, you call it nuance or something, but we just get to know them so much better, um, that I think it gives the writing a place to go. It's not just about the gag, but it can be about that too. I mean, it has to be about, this is about getting laughs. But I think what happens, the stories of Sam and his romances and how he changes and how the characters develop over time. Um, I, I I did a Mary Tyler Moore episode when she tried to make a comeback. I think the show only lasted a year, but she had such interesting observations, from her experiences early on, with Mary Tyler Moore show. But she said there is no other art form where the audience gets to know the character as well as what you'll see on television. Movies, it's just 2 to 3 hours and that's it. Reading a book, it's just not the same thing. Uh, Here they get to, if the show is successful, they get to know you over a 5 or 6 year period. And that's, it deepens the relationship. People will always remember, uh, you know, that character and things that happened to them, you know. It's very interesting. And Cheers is a great example for it, I think. Do you feel like that the writing uh, actually improved as time went on because we got to know people better? What do you think?
Um, yeah, a lot of people, well, people are split with Cheers because you have I don't know why it is, but you have the Diane people and the Rebecca people. So you either like the early years
Yeah.
or later years. That doesn't seem to be the case with Coach and Woody, however. It's like those two are okay.
No.
We can have them both. But apparently you can't like Diane and Rebecca. I like them both. I like Rebecca slightly better because Kirstie Alley happens to be one of my favorite actresses. So
Uh-huh.
that's actually why I started watching Cheers. I've explained on this podcast. I saw Look Who's Talking when it came out, and that was around the time of the 200th episode of Cheers. And my parents watched it, so all of a sudden I looked on TV and I was like, that's Molly from Look Who's Talking, and I was all excited and I was hooked on Cheers. And then I had a crush on Ted
Uh-huh.
Danson, so that's how I started
Sure.
watching.
You weren't the only one.
I was the only one about my age, however. All my friends were
Oh.
like into the New Kids on the Block, and I was like, no, that's Ted Danson. So I was not normal. My, I actually gave this episode three. I do beer nuts instead of stars because it's a bar. So I gave it
Yeah.
3.5 out of 5 beer nuts. It was pretty good, but it's not one of my favorites. And actually, the best scene to me was the one between Walt Twitchell and Cliff Clavin.
Oh, well, I'm glad.
Yeah,
Thanks.
the A plot with Norm, I didn't find as exciting. It was like, okay, he fires,
Hmm.
he cries, he fires. Got kind of boring. But I mean, that scene was short, but I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I
And
was also,
I do. Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say I also do most valuable player, which is also a baseball team because Sam played baseball. That's how I get my things.
Right.
And I gave that to George Wendt because he pretty much carried the show throughout. And like I said, he
Yeah.
does great physical comedy. He did improv with Second City before Cheers.
Right. Right.
Him and Shelley Long both did.
Who else did?
Shelley Long, she did Second City
Oh,
as well.
really?
Yep.
I didn't realize that. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
That's how she got a lot of her comedy, her
Yeah.
comedy background, of course. But like you see in certain shows, like there's one she's doing an impression of a chicken, and it's very Second City like.
Now, did you ever have Shelley on the show? Your show, this interview?
Uh, no, I asked her. I haven't gotten any of the main cast yet. I've had some of the guest stars, but I have not been able to get main
Oh,
cast. But Shelley Long is her agent was the first to respond, and she was one of the people affected by the fires in California. So she was dealing with that. So she's not doing interviews. I was like, I understand.
oh yeah, yeah. I
And I'm
always
also
wondered how she
guessing,
felt.
I mean, I don't know, but I'm also guessing that for her doing interviews is probably hard because she gets so much flack still from the fact that she left the show after season five. Which I'm like, why are people still not over that? It's been 40 years. Time to move.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I
People leave
mean,
shows. It
why should people?
happens.
Yeah, why should people? Audiences have that. Well, I guess they feel like they have ownership. To some degree, they're invested for 5 years in this person. But I wonder how she. I never heard how she felt about her choice ultimately of leaving and trying to move into doing film, which I don't know was ever as successful for her as at least what she was able to do with Cheers.
Yeah. And I like her
Anyway,
movies too. I
yeah.
mean, they're not like A-list movies, but I think they're good movies.
Well,
So
she's
for
good. She was very good. She was a
yeah,
good actress. So, I think she did well.
very
I
talented.
like Christy Alley as well. I enjoyed, getting to know her on. They were two very different kinds of people. I couldn't describe it, but I know just two very different women, as the characters were as well.
What did you think of Shelley Long? Because I know a lot, the cast, the main cast, and people that have been on it, a lot of the majority of them have said she's very difficult to work with. So I was
I
wondering,
didn't find, I didn't, of course, have anything to do with her. So if that were an issue, it wasn't for me in any way. Um, and because of that, I I felt a little bit like she was by herself, a little bit, you know, everyone else was so welcoming and very like family. Not that she was unfriendly, but she wasn't that same kind of welcoming, effusive personality like so many of the people who were on the show kind of exuded. Um, but Jim Burrows had a real gift for putting casts together, um,
yeah.
which I think is essential to making a successful sitcom. At least it was. I assume it still is. Because you're going to spend a lot of time together. Um, it's not quite like doing a dramatic show, a 1 hour show or something like that, where you may not see the other people even for 2 or 3 days unless you happen to have scenes with them, even if you're regulars. It's a very different thing. Which was great because it was like working in the theater sitcoms. You're doing a little play. You rehearse it for 3 days, tech it for one day, and do it for an audience on the fifth day.
Yeah. And so I have a theory. And obviously I wasn't there, so I don't know, but this is my theory. From
Hmm.
when I've done theater. I have worked with actors in theater who some are outgoing, friendly, they chat with you all, and then I've seen some that basically lock themselves in the green room until they have to go on. They go on and go back to the green room because they need to focus, concentrate. They don't, and I'm like, I think that's what Shelley Long was like. I don't think it was so much that she was a bad person, like a lot of people seem to think. I think she's just one of those very focused people that needed her own space. But I wasn't there, so I don't know. But that's my theory.
That could very well be true. I know. I don't know. I know if you're a guest on a show like that, because the pressures on you as a guest artist, as a guest performer, are different than
Yeah.
if you're a regular. Um, a lot of times the guests do kind of silo themselves a bit because of their concentration. It, you feel like the stakes are higher for you in a way because you want to do well, and you only get this is it. It's not like next week they're going to write you, give you something else to do. So, although occasionally they do give you something else to do, like Walt Twitchell, in another year.
When you first did this episode, did you know you'd be coming back as Walt Twitchell, or did they just call you as they needed you?
Called me as they needed me.
Okay.
And there was one episode we did. It actually was where I had the Walt Twitchell had a major part of this. They're often two storylines. I had a really strong storyline, and uh, it may have been the B storyline, but it was a lot about Walt Twitchell. I don't even remember what it was. But I remember I came to the second day and they had totally changed the episode, and Walt essentially wasn't even in it anymore. But they were nice enough to said, we want, please stick around. We'll write a cold opening, and you can be in the cold opening for that. So that it was still, I'm still was still a part of it, but whatever Walt Twitchell's future was didn't happen. That's why I
Yeah,
can't
he's
remember
definitely
it.
very one of the
Sometimes,
characters people remember.
yep, I think it's true. Well, one of the things I give myself a credit for as an actor is that I was able to make some pretty distinctive characters in play, and people tended to remember them, which is partially me, and but of course a great deal has to do with the writing. But the two of us, those two elements together, like the caterer for the Golden Girls, and Mr. DePerna on Wonder Years, and also on Coach, uh, where I played the band director, Riley Pringle. Um,
Right.
he was very distinctive.
That was a good show too.
Yeah, it was.
So
Eric
apparently
Kemp.
the Walt Twitchell postal uniform for me is the equivalent of Clark Kent's glasses. Because I did not realize you were all these other people. Like I didn't know you were Patrick, the guy in Golden. And I knew all those people were the same, but I didn't know that they were Walt Twitchell. It was the same actor. So
Uh-huh.
apparently that uniform threw me off.
A funny thing happened when we moved. My wife and I moved from L.A. We moved to the Twin Cities to St. Paul, Minnesota, and I had a photograph from a movie I had done. That the photograph was of me, that was over the prince. I played a principal over my desk, and I when I left the film, they said, "Hey, do you want to take the photograph?" It was very large. And I said, "Oh, sure, it's great, souvenir." And I had stuck. We moved, and I had opened up a package. Oh, here are these pictures. I didn't want this on my wall. I'd stuck it in the garage on the wall. And about a week and a half after we had arrived, um, the postal department delivered books. Because you send them postal rate because it's cheaper than a moving van. And so they were delivering several boxes of books to our house, and they said, "Well, we'll just." I said, "Put them out in the garage," and actually my wife did that, and she opened the door for them, and the postal guys saw my picture there, even though I wasn't Walt Twitchell. And they said, "Hey, why do you have Raye Birk's picture in your garage?" And my wife explained that, well, that's my husband. We moved here. Said, "Yeah, Walt. That's Walt Twitchell. It's great that you have Walt Twitchell's picture in your garage." So I thought it was great that the post office had a special place in their memory for Walt Twitchell.
So for best dressed for this episode, and I have to move, was Sam
Uh-huh.
Malone because I like that shirt. It's purple. Actually, I
Okay.
originally had Diane for best dressed until I saw that shirt, and then I had switched it to him because I do best dressed each
Okay.
time. Which tends to be Shelley's clothes because she apparently got all the good clothes on the show. But sometimes it's other people. So I have baseball related. I have a grand slam line and a non-base line, my first and second favorite lines. The grand
Oh
slam
yeah.
line was Carla. Come on, Norm. What could be more interesting than another gripping episode of The Young and the Chess List? And the on base line, which you already mentioned as your comment line, they're going to have your bags.
Yep.
And Cliff, when you as you're leaving, responds, "Your mother's a bag."
And that got the big laugh, a bigger laugh
Yeah,
than
yeah.
they're going to have your bags, which I thought it has a double entendre in it and everything, but it still didn't score as big. Your mother is a bag, so there you go.
And the little known fact, which I would let you do this one about the 9-digit zip code.
Yes, you mentioned that. Uh, I wouldn't have I wouldn't have any idea. I was aware of the nine digits. Do you know when they added the extra four digits? Do you know?
No, I don't know when it
Yeah,
was added.
I it may have been something that was current, at that in the 80s at that time, because originally it was five digits. And then at some point they added these extra digits, and I just said, "Oh, yeah, well, I who knows those extra four digits? Do you know yours? I don't know mine. I never have. I know the basic five, but those other four, it's like a mystery to me."
Yeah, I know the why, I just don't know the when. The
Yeah,
why was to
yeah,
make it specific to pinpointing to route, block, or building. So it just
yep.
made it more narrow. But yeah, I don't know when. But apparently people
Do
like that
you like,
line because they asked me to ask you.
but like when you write a letter and you have to put down your zip code, do you put all nine letters, nine digits in?
I only use five, but occasionally I have seen where it says, what is your 9-digit zip code? And I'm like, why do I know that? I don't know that.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
I'm
Which
surprised
makes
that Sam
actually
Malone knew it.
it's surprise. Also, it's perfect for Walt Twitchell that he is. Would really appreciate those last four. Would totally get that. That would be something that a good citizen should do. By the book.
See, that episode first aired, all the postal workers were going, yeah, and everybody else was going, what's he talking about?
Exactly. And I can't remember. Did it get a laugh when you
I
rewatched
don't
it?
remember.
I can't either.
Yeah, I don't remember.
It wouldn't have been a big laugh, but it might have gotten a small laugh.
So next week will be Cheers season 3, episode 21, Cheerio Cheers. And I have another question for you. Hold on. Oh yeah. Do you have any advice to give to young actors who are trying to find their footing?
Uh, be persistent. Don't get discouraged, and continue studying. Take find classes so that you continue to grow and improve as an actor. You can't always um, improve yourself as an actor just with the opportunities for work, because sometimes they don't offer the kind of challenge that you need to grow and change and expand as an artist. So yeah, continue to train and persist. That's it.
And you said you're not currently in the business, but are you still doing theater? Or are you completely retired?
If someone were to call me, I'm available. But I live in an area that doesn't have much professional theater. Um, I, I do still. I've always taught, so I do a little coaching on the side. But no,
Nice.
not at the moment. That's fine.
And is there anything else you would like to share that we have not covered?
I think I've anything that had come up. I think I've gotten a chance to mention. Uh, it was fun, seeing the episode and see what memories came up with it, things I'd forgotten about, um, especially about seeing my old buddy Alan Blumenfeld and discovering that he was in the same episode. That was great.
Yeah, I'm still wondering why he didn't show up in the credits. That's so weird. All
Yeah.
right. Well, thank you for doing the
Yep.
show and the interview and all that. Um, you definitely have memorable characters, both Cheers with Walt Twitchell, Golden Girls, Naked Gun, Wonder Years.
And Babylon 5 you mentioned, which is one of my pieces of serious television I'm most proud of.
I've never seen that show.
Oh, you haven't? Yeah,
No.
watch it, or at least watch my episode. You could watch that one episode and still uh, it stands alone. Yeah.
I'll have to look for it.
I thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Right. And that's one woman's opinion.